Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
We are learning Mishna Megillah, Perek Beis, Chapter 2, Mishnah, Mishnah 5. And we're going to do actually today 5 and 6 because they pretty much go together. Kol Hayoim, Kashla Kriyas Megillah. Here we have, here going to have a list of daytime mitzvahs that the Mishnah is teaching us. They're kosher to do. You can do them the entire day. Kol Hayoim, Kashla Kriyas Megillah. The entire day is kosher for reading the Megillah. Just for, we know that for the entire day you can't read Shema, right? Kriya Shema is not for the entire day. Kriya Shema has its limits. So here we're saying that you have other daytime mitzvahs that really you have the whole day. The entire day is kosher for the reading of the Megillah, for the daytime reading. Or the Kriyas HaHallel, and for the reading of Hallel, right? Hallel that we say, the special Hallel prayer that we say on Yom Tov, Rosh Chodesh, and on holidays and on Hanukkah. You have a whole day to say Hallel. L'tkiyah shofar, and for the blowing of the shofar. L'tilas lulav, and for on Sukkot taking the lulav, esrei, gadasim, and avos, taking the 4 species. L'tfilas hamusafin, v'lamusafin, and for the musaf prayer and for the musaf offerings. We know that in times of the Beis Hamikdash, on Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, Yom Tov, you had the musaf. You had what's called the musafin, literally the additional sacrifices. Corresponding to that, we have the prayer of Musaf that we say on Shabbos, Yom Tov, and Rosh Chodesh. So the prayer of Musaf and the actual Musaf offerings could be done the entire day. Okay, that's important to know, right? Because if for some reason you miss Musaf, for some reason you miss Musaf, you have a whole day to do it. I believe the halacha is lachatchila, you should get it. You should do it by the 7th hour. But if you don't, you still have the rest of the day to do it.
And you daven mincha before Musaf?
That's the discussion. But Levide HaParim, and with the confession of the cows. This is referring to the Par Shal Kohen HaMashiach and the Param Davar Shal Tzibur, which we had not long ago. The case of where the Torah talks about a case where the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, made a halachic decision to permit something. He was wrong in his decision. He mistakenly made a decision to permit something that actually carries the punishment of kares, the punishment of your soul being cut off. And he actually did it based on that mistaken decision, and then he realized his mistake. So he has a special cow as a sin offering for him to bring. And when he brings that cow, he has to confess the sin that he committed. That confession has to be done by day, and he has a whole day to do it. Another situation of confession by cow is where the Sanhedrin, the highest court of the Jewish people, rendered a decision to permit something that was actually the punishment that goes with that act is kares, being cut off. They made a mistake in their decision, and the majority of the Jewish people acted upon that decision, and then everybody realizes the mistake. The Sanhedrin has to now bring a cow as a chatas offering for themselves, and they have to now say vidui for what they did. That vidui, that's the vidui haparim. That's the confession of the cows. Those are the 2 cases that the Mishnah means when it says the confession of the cows. You have to do it by day. You have a whole day to do it. And for the confession of Meiser, the confession of Meiser is that we know that we have we have the 7-year agricultural cycle of the Jewish people, where you have the 6 years is regular planting, the 7th year is Shemitah. And we know that during those years, when not the Shemitah year, but the other years, our new produce of each year, you have to take off Truma, you give it to the Kohen. You have to take off Meiser, the first tithing, you have to give it to the Levi. And the Torah says that on the last day of Pesach, of the 4th and 7 years of the 7-year Shemitah cycle, okay, that's even in the Shemitah year itself, there's no Trumas and Meiser that year, but the confession is made on the last day of Pesach of the 4th and 7th year, where the person declares that over the last 3 years, he has separated the required portions, the Meiser, the Truma, what goes to the Kohen, it goes to the Levi, from his produce, and done with it as required by law. That's what it means, vidui Meiser. You do that by day, you have a whole day to do it. Well, Levida Yom Kippurim, for the confession of Yom Kippur. Here it's talking about the confession. I mean, we know there's a confession of Yom Kippur we say by night also, right? But the confession of Yom Kippurim here that has to be by day is talking about the Kohen Gadol's confession. Before the Kohen Gadol offers the special offerings of Yom Kippur, he says a confession over these cows. They have to be done by day. He has a whole day to do it. Next, l'smicha, l'shchita, l'tnufa. L'smicha means for leaning, for slaughtering, and for waving. What does this mean? So, in most cases, smicha means, I'm reading here from the notes, in the case of most personal offerings, whether they're obligatory or voluntary, the owner leans down on the head of the animal before it is offered, takes his hands, and he leans down on the head of the animal. That is what's done before the shchita. That's called smicha. Smicha has to be done by day. Yeah, it can be done a whole day. Shchita is slaughtering. That's slaughtering. We're talking about here slaughtering a carbon. Slaughtering a carbon has to be done by day. Yeah, but by day. L'snufa. What does waving mean? That is explained as some offerings, including the shlamim, that's what we call the peace offering, require tnufa waving. The kohen, sometimes together with the owner, waves certain parts of the offering up and down in the four directions of the compass. That's tnufa, that's waving. Again, that has to be done by day. It can be done any time of the day. Lahagasha, lekamitza, laktara. This literally means to bring the mincha, the meal offering, to the mizbeach, to kamitza, to scoop up what has to be scooped up, and for offering it, throwing it onto the mizbeach to burn. So again, the excuse me, when bringing a mincha offering, a meal offering, flour and oil, the kohen takes the vessel that holds the mincha and touches it against the corner of the altar. That's hagasha. Before he does, the first thing he does, he brings it and he touches it to a corner of the he touches it against a corner of the altar. He then removes a portion of the mincha with a scoop formed by bending three of his fingers over his palm, right? The three fingers, and you scoop it up. And then he burns that portion on the altar. Those are these three things: hagasha, bringing forth; kamitza, scooping up; haktara, offering. All can be done any time of the day. Next, the malika. Malika is a specific type of shchita, and it's only done on a bird when it's brought up as a carbon, as an altar. You have to go ahead and you slaughter the bird with your fingernail. Okay, that's how you do malika. The kohen has to have a fingernail by which he's going to slit the neck of the bird offering. Ula kabbalah. Kabbalah means for catching the blood, right? Anytime you bring a carbon, the first spurt of blood that comes out of the animal is caught in a vessel, and then it's applied to the mizbeach. So ula kabbalah, ula hazaya, for catching the blood, and for hazaya means sprinkling. So here, sprinkling means the application of blood. Anytime there's an application of blood, it can be done anytime during the day. Ula ashkayas saita, and for giving a sota to drink. A saita is a woman who is suspected of adultery. Her husband warned her not to go into seclusion with a man. She did it anyway. And there are witnesses of the fact, so she becomes forbidden to him, and she remains forbidden until she's brought to the Beis HaMikdash, where they give her a special drink. The drink is called Mayim HaMa'arim, bitter waters, which consists of sacred water mixed with earth from the temple floor, into which a scroll containing the name of Hashem has been dissolved. That's what she drinks, and that's going to determine whether she is innocent or guilty. That, giving her to drink the water, can be done any time of the day. Okay? V'la arifas egla. Just 1 second. Yeah. V'la arifas egla. And for the beheading of the calf, if a person is found murdered in a field, the elders of the nearest city must behead a calf and declare that they bear no responsibility for the murder. The calf is called egla arufa, the beheaded calf. This again, done by day, a whole day, it can be done a whole day. Or the tahara sametzaira, and for the purification of the metzaira. A metzaira is a person who contracted saras, a certain type of skin affliction that are described in Vayikra. He is tamei until the affliction heals, and he goes through an 8-day purification process. On the first day, he participates in a ritual that involves the use of 2 birds, as described in the Chumash. So that process of the purification, or the beginning of the purification of the Metzora, which is done, that is done by day, and you have a whole day to do it. And as I bring down here, the Torah uses the word yom, day, in connection with all the activities listed here, teaching that they may be performed at any point in the daytime, but not after nightfall. The activities listed in the previous Mishnah. Now, here's an important point. The activities in the previous Mishnah, Mila, Tvila, and sprinkling of the paraduma water, right? That we mentioned that regarding right. The Mishnah before said that all these things you can't do until sunrise. And if you do it by daybreak, you can do it by daybreak. These are also daytime things that have to be done. So here, those things mentioned before are included in this rule as well. It may be performed at any time throughout the day until night. Likewise, the law mentioned in that Mishnah, namely that daytime mitzvahs may not be done before dawn, also applies to activities listed here. Okay, so the point is that we've listed a number of mitzvahs, but there are other daytime mitzvahs also not mentioned here in the Mishnah that include in the same idea, other than Shema, that you have a whole day to do them. The Mishnah reads like this: once we talked about what you can do a whole day, now we're going to talk about what you can do a whole night, and that is the entire night. Kasher is kasher for cutting the omer. The omer was an offering of barley that was brought on the 16th of Nisan. The barley was harvested the previous night. You have the whole night to go ahead and harvest that barley for the mincha offering that will be offered on the next day, on the second day of Pesach. And for the burning of fats and limbs. This refers to the afternoon tamid offering, which may be burned on the altar all night, as the verse states, it is the burnt offering that stays on the flame on the altar all night until the morning. However, it should be preferably burned during the day. The Mishnah teaches that if it was not burned during the day, may be burned at any time during the night. Meaning, the parts that we're talking about that are burned at night, really they should be burned by day. That's the time for burning them. If you don't burn them by day, you burn them by night, and you have the whole rest of the night to do it. So Zeh Klal, the Mishnah says this is the rule. Excuse me. Anything that it's mitzvah when the mitzvah is supposed to be anything that it's mitzvah is supposed to be performed by day, kasher kalayim. You have the whole day to do it. Something that is mitzvah is to be performed at night, kasher kalalayla is kasher the entire night. The Bartanura points out that what are we referring to here when we say whatever is mitzvahs at night is kasher the entire night? Even though, as I mentioned, the Mishnah is talking about eating the carbon Pesach. Eat the carbon Pesach on the night of Pesach, right? You have a whole night to eat it. Now we know that the Chachamim said you should eat it by chatzos, by midnight. Right. That's only because, as the Mishnah Baracha says, is to prevent the person from thinking they have all the time left, don't fall asleep, and they miss the whole thing. Yeah. So therefore, the Chachamim said, ad chatzos, you have to do it by midnight. But if you didn't do it by midnight, you have the whole night to do it. The same thing by Kriya Shema night. It's supposed to do it by halachic midnight, but if you didn't, you still have the whole night to do it. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.